Your brain was never meant to think like a slave. That line should rattle you, because it's not poetic, it's a warning. You were engineered to think in loops, to consume, obey, repeat, not to lead, not to strategize. They didn't teach you how to think. They taught you how to wait for instructions. From the moment you could sit still, they placed you in a system built to strip your cognitive weaponry. You weren't taught focus. You were taught compliance. You weren't taught control. You were taught comfort. You weren't trained to dominate your mind. You were programmed to be mentally available to anyone who could command your attention. Scroll, swipe, react over and over, like a lab rat chasing digital cheese. And the worst part? You think it's you doing it. You think your lack of discipline is your flaw, not their design. But here's the forbidden truth. Your brain was built to solve problems, to create frameworks, to hunt, to conquer chaos, not to check notifications, not to binge, not to escape. And every time you silence that inner voice, the one that knows you're slipping, you betray your original blueprint. You feel the fog, the mental fatigue, the numb anxiety that follows hours of mindless scrolling or doing what you're supposed to do. That's not weakness. That's your brain screaming to break out of its cage, because deep down, you know, you were meant for more than reacting. You were meant to orchestrate. And once you see the system, once you feel that fire again, you don't just wake up. You become dangerous. But first, you need to understand why you feel so mentally scattered, so emotionally out of sync, so lost. That's where we go next. Why you struggle to think strategically and don't even know it. You don't need chains to be imprisoned. All it takes is a distracted mind. You think you're in control because you can choose what to watch, what to click, what to say. But choices made from reaction aren't power. They're panic dressed up as free will. Most people aren't thinking. They're responding to pressure, to noise, to fear of missing out. And they don't even realize it because it feels normal. But let me ask you, why do you open your phone when you feel uncertain? Why do you avoid silence like it's suffocating? Why do you feel busy yet achieve nothing that matters? Because you're stuck in mental survival mode, a loop designed to keep you tired, scattered, and emotionally hijacked. And in that state, strategy dies. You can't plan your future when you're drowning in your present. You're not lazy, you're not broken. You've just been mentally fragmented by a world that profits from your confusion. Short dopamine loops, shallow conversations, constant urgency. You live on edge, but nothing sharpens. No clarity, no precision, just noise. And over time, this becomes your identity. Someone who can't focus, who needs motivation, who's just trying to get by. But that's not who you are. It's who you were taught to be. There is a way out. But it's not comfortable, it's not convenient, and most won't take it because it demands confrontation, discipline, and the courage to face what you've avoided. But if you're still here, you already feel it. The system's breaking, and something darker and more powerful is trying to wake up. Next, we weaponize that awareness. You're not bad at thinking. You're thinking like a pawn. You've been blaming yourself, telling yourself you're undisciplined, unfocused, not smart enough. But here's the truth they don't want you to realize. You're not broken, you're just thinking like a pawn. And pawns aren't meant to lead, they're meant to follow, to obey, to move one square at a time, never questioning the board they're trapped on. That's how most people think. They react to what's in front of them. They fear risk, they chase approval, they wait for permission. Because they were trained to be expendable. But chess doesn't belong to the pawn, it belongs to the player. And the ones who rise, they think like kings, queens, knights. They don't just move, they anticipate, they analyze, they strike with intention. Where pawns see threats, strategists see patterns. Where pawns seek safety, strategists seek control. And once you see that your mind is a weapon, not a weakness, everything shifts. You start asking different questions. Who benefits from my confusion? What's the long game here? Where's the leverage? Not just the comfort, Because power doesn't come from reacting fast, it comes from thinking deeply. And pawns never think deep. They're taught not to. But you're here because something in you never fit into that mold. You've always felt out of place in the shallow end. This is your signal. You don't need a better brain. You need a sharper role on the board. And the move that changes everything? It's how you handle chaos. The next section shows you how strategists use chaos as fuel, while pawns crumble in it. Your mind is a weapon, but it's set to safe mode. Here's the dangerous truth no one ever told you. Your mind isn't weak. It's regulated, governed, limited, running in safe mode, like a high-powered machine locked behind factory settings. You're not using your full brain. You're stuck in the default setting, the survival loop, the part of your mind designed to scan for threats, follow routines, and keep you alive. It's fast, emotional, reactive. It doesn't plan. It doesn't build. It protects, even when there's nothing to protect you from. That's where most people live, constantly triggered, constantly exhausted. Not because life is hard, but because their cognition is stuck on low power. But there's another layer, a higher circuit, one that only a few ever access. It's called metacognition, the ability to think about your thinking, to observe your impulses without obeying them, to design your focus, sculpt your reality, and predict outcomes before they happen. This is the executive layer of the mind, and it's the part that makes you lethal. When you operate from this space, time slows down. You don't react, you respond. You don't guess, you forecast. You become a strategist of your own reality. But most never get there, because they've trained themselves to be too busy, too distracted, too entertained. And here's the twist. Your mind wants to evolve, but it needs permission to unlock the higher circuits. That permission is pain, pattern recognition, and mental control. In the next section, we expose the hack that pulls you out of reaction mode and into ruthless clarity, switching from reactive mode to architect mode. Here's the shift that changes everything. Stop reacting. Start architecting. There's a reason powerful minds don't panic. They don't scream when things go wrong. They don't spiral over emotions or jump at every threat, because they've mastered the strategic pause loop, a 3-step protocol that separates pawns from players. It's not about thinking more. It's about interrupting your default code and writing a new one in real time. Here's how it works. Step 1. Interrupt the reaction. The moment you feel triggered, pause. Not 5 minutes later. Not after you've rented or numbed out. Right there. Catch the storm before it explodes. Step 2. Zoom out with a control question. Ask yourself, what am I actually reacting to? What's the pattern here? Who benefits if I stay emotional? This pulls your brain out of survival and into strategy. Step 3. Recode the response. Now that you've seen the map, choose the move. You're not obligated to react how you feel. You're free to engineer the response that serves your future, not your impulse. This loop doesn't take hours, it takes seconds. But each time you run it, you're rewiring your identity. From reactor to architect, from emotional noise to psychological signals. Most people never pause. They act out old scripts, then wonder why their life never changes. But the strategic pause loop? It's the breach point, the place where low-level thinking collapses and high-level execution is born. You've just been handed the mechanism, but now it's time to go deeper, because even architects need to confront the one enemy hiding beneath all this chaos. The self-sabotage loop, cognitive shadow work, strategic power. If you think strategy is just about moves and plans, you're still playing on the surface. Real power starts internally, and the most lethal thinkers, they don't just outplay the world, they outmaneuver themselves. Enter cognitive shadow work. It's not therapy, it's not self-care, it's psychological warfare with your own mind. Because the biggest threat to your strategy isn't the world, it's the mental lies you quietly believe. I'll do it later. I'm just tired. This isn't the right time. These aren't thoughts. They're defense mechanisms. Fragments of your brain built to keep you emotionally safe, but strategically stuck. Shadow work is the art of exposing that. Looking your lazy thoughts dead in the eye and asking, "Who told you that was true?" It's confronting your ego when it flinches at feedback. It's dissecting the emotional bias that makes you overvalue comfort and underestimate challenge. Cognitive shadow work turns your mental blind spots into leverage, because every fear you name becomes a weakness you can eliminate. Every excuse you dismantle becomes a pattern you can reprogram. This is why high-level thinkers feel cold, focused, precise. Not because they have no emotion, but because they've burned through their emotional noise. They've weaponized introspection. And now, it's your turn. You've learned to pause. You've started to think like an architect. But can you confront the parts of you that don't want to win? Because until you do, your strategy will always collapse under pressure. Next, we reveal how elite minds don't just do shadow work. They build power rituals to lock in that clarity and never lose it. Outcome versus ego, what most never learn. Here's the silent trap that keeps smart people stuck. They confuse being right with winning, and your brain, it's hardwired to protect your ego, even if it costs you everything else. You felt it, the need to argue, the urge to defend, the voice in your head whispering, "Don't back down, don't look weak." But that voice doesn't care if you succeed. It cares if you feel safe, and that's the problem. Your mind would rather protect your identity than upgrade it. Strategic thinkers kill that instinct. They replace ego with outcome. They ask one question in every situation: what actually moves me forward? It's not about pride, it's about positioning. Someone insults you, you don't bite, you observe. Someone challenges your view, you don't react, you reframe. You're not there to be liked or validated. You're there to win the long game. Practical shift. Start practicing strategic silence. Say less. Watch more. Power listens before it moves. Another shift. Use predictive journaling. Every morning ask, what ego traps might show up today? How will I beat them? These micro shifts rewire your brain to prioritize outcomes over comfort. And when you do that long enough, something dangerous happens. Your thinking becomes untouchable. People can't trigger you. Situations can't derail you, because you've stopped playing for points and started playing for power. This is how strategy becomes rebellion, not loud, not flashy, but precise, calculated, and impossible to manipulate. And now that you've severed ego from your operating system, it's time to step into the next tier, controlling perception and using it to bend power in your favor. Upgrade your inputs, upgrade your mind. Your mind is a sponge. It soaks up everything, every word, every image, every sound. But here's the catch. It doesn't discriminate. It absorbs whatever's closest, loudest, or most frequent, whether that's wisdom or poison. Your environment is your silent puppeteer. The people you talk to, the feeds you scroll, the noise you drown yourself in. They're not just distractions. They're training grounds for your thinking. If your input is shallow, gossip, chaos, mindless scrolling, your brain will mirror that. Scattered, reactive, exhausted. If your input is strategic, deliberate, challenging, rare, your brain sharpens. It expands. It becomes a weapon. This is why controlling what you consume is non-negotiable. Enter input, control rituals. Simple practices that turn your daily intake into fuel for mental domination. Block toxic voices. Curate your feeds with intention. Create quiet zones where distraction can't survive. Think of it as building an inner temple, a sacred space where your mind can thrive, where clarity and focus become the default state. Most people live in clutter, but you're cleaning the house. You're building the fortress your strategic mind deserves, because a weapon can't be forged in noise. It's forged in silence, discipline, and precision. And once your environment aligns with your ambitions, your thoughts will follow. Your power will follow. Next, we dive even deeper. into the psychological armor that makes this transformation unbreakable. You are a thinker. The world wasn't ready for. For too long, you've carried a secret. Burden. The weight of thinking too much, feeling too deeply, questioning too fiercely. You were told to quiet that voice, to blend in, to stop overanalyzing and just be normal. But what if that voice, the one that keeps you awake at night, the one that sees what others don't, isn't a curse? What if it's your greatest weapon? You are not broken. You were never broken. You are a thinker the world wasn't ready for. The world is built for pawns, simple, predictable, easy to control. But you're the knight who leaps over the board, the queen who dominates every square, the king who bends the game to their will. Your mind isn't a problem to fix. It's a fortress to command. That relentless questioning, the endless why that isolates you, is the spark of strategic rebellion. You were born to build mental empires, not follow worn-out paths. This is why you felt misunderstood, out of sync, like an outsider. Because you are. You don't belong to the herd. You belong to the rare few who see the world as it truly is, a chessboard waiting for their move. So own that power. Own that identity. The fog of confusion, the pain of isolation, they were never your limits. They were your launch pad. And now, with this unshakable identity, you're ready to rise higher. Next, we'll explore the final barrier, the mental fortress you must conquer to make this power permanent and unstoppable. Ruthlessly train your mind, or be trained by the world. Here's the final truth, raw and unfiltered. If you don't ruthlessly train your mind, the world will do it for you. Your brain is a weapon, but like any weapon, it must be sharpened, calibrated, mastered. Left to wander, it becomes dull. It absorbs the noise, the distractions, the illusions. It learns to react, not to command. And you become a pawn in someone else's game. But here's the choice, and it's yours alone. Will you forge yourself into a strategist, architect of your reality, the master of your own fate, or will you stay asleep, letting life shape your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions? From this moment forward, there is no middle ground. Every thought you think is a move on the board. Every choice is a weapon in your arsenal. Train with precision. Train with discipline. Train until your mind is unbreakable, until your clarity cuts through chaos like a blade. This isn't motivation. It's a ritual, a covenant you make with yourself, to never settle for reactive thinking again, to always strategize, to always elevate, because power isn't given. It's taken, it's earned, and it's wielded by those who refuse to be controlled. So rise, step into the role you were born for. Think like a strategist. Live like a king on a chessboard of infinite possibilities. The game is on. Make your move. Mini missions to train. Strategic thinking daily. Strategy isn't a one-time switch. It's a muscle, forged by daily ritual and discipline. So here's your secret playbook. 4 mini missions designed to sharpen your mind every single day. Mission 1. Morning. Outcome framing. Before the world drags you into chaos, take 2 minutes. Ask, what outcome must I own today? Set that as your mental North Star. Everything you do, every decision you make, orbits this purpose. Mission 2. Reverse engineering moments. At day's end, review one choice you made. Ask, did this move serve my long game or my ego? Break it down piece by piece. Learn the hidden triggers that pushed you off course. Mission 3. One question journaling. Keep it simple. Every evening, write the answer to one brutal question. What's the one thought or excuse I need to dismantle tomorrow? This exposes your mental shadows, the self-sabotage lurking beneath. Mission 4. Predictive Thinking Exercises. Before a meeting, conversation, or challenge, pause and predict possible outcomes. Visualize your moves. Anticipate resistance. Prepare your responses. This primes your brain for control instead of chaos. These aren't just drills, they're covert rituals, silent wars you wage inside every day that build unshakable mental dominance. No one will hand you power. You have to train for it, relentlessly, intentionally. Do these missions consistently and watch as your mind transforms from reactive noise to calculated command. Now, go make the impossible inevitable.